The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Monday. It's August 3rd. We've got lots of stuff to get into today. You want to be part of the conversation? You can do it multiple ways. You can tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. You can email us, soccerdownhere@gmail. You can also join us on twitch.tv. John, stop pointing. It's distracting, man. Twitch.tv/soccer down here. I don't need to be counted off. I've done this a few times. I'm like, what? What's going on down there? What? Jeez. I figure you got breaking news or something. What's your breaking news?
No, there's no breaking news
You
yet.
got breaking news about blueberry muffins for some reason.
Oh, that. Okay. The conversations that we've had previously about how long something should be kept in your kitchen before you throw it away. That's kind of, I guess, where we are this morning. I'm testing those limits.
You're testing the limits of what exactly?
Sale dates and eating dates and the actual health of eating something. It's all right. So sale date, sell by for this particular round of blueberry muffins was the 21st.
Okay.
So that's 13 days with blueberry muffins in-house. I think we're getting to the limit of said blueberry muffin 4-pack because you're kind of getting a little gamey. But
gamey? How is bread gamey?
Just a little hard.
That's not chewy. Gamey. Gamey is what you describe like chicken tasting like.
It's a little on the hard side.
The word stale you're looking for.
Can blueberry muffins get stale?
They can get more stale than gamey.
Okay. It just tastes a little hard this morning. I was thinking, tomorrow morning when I have the last of the 4-pack, maybe put it in the microwave for 15 or 20 seconds, loosen it up a little bit.
I'm just still blown away when you say gamey.
It's just chewy. It's just a little chewy.
That's not gamey. Like, that's not the word.
Gamey to me just means that you can't chew it, you can't digest it. It just kind of sit there with you and hang out a little bit. That's what this blueberry muffin was doing this morning.
What do you call something that tastes like chicken?
Chicken, hopefully.
Oh, Ricky, I have no idea what you just walked into. I'm blown away. I thought it was going to be, okay, he's eating some stale muffins. No big deal. Then he calls them gamey, and I don't even know what kind of muffins he's eating, and I'm disturbed.
It's the ones from the 4-pack that you get from Publix. Those are the ones. And I guess 2 weeks is the limit.
Yeah, why? There's 4 of them.
Yeah.
And it was sell by the 21st, and today's the 3rd.
Yes,
what have you done with them for 2 weeks or a week plus?
I've had the other breakfast food. Remember when we got into the discussion about the little breakfast food, the little Danishy things that I would have? So
turnovers.
We had a lot of turnovers, whatever.
No, there's a big difference. But anyway.
But so it's like I had to have those. I had to finish those off, and I had the blueberry muffins. We had an abundance of breakfast food that had to be eaten in the kitchen. So being the systematic eater that I am.
That's not very systematic if you had 4 muffins that went stale.
Well, I don't know if they're stale. I guess it's
you're the one eating them. Do you understand what stale is?
Yeah, stale means it tastes like ass.
No, it doesn't. Somebody, please give John a definition of stale. Tweet at him at OSG Nelson and yell at him on Twitch.
And add me as a friend if you haven't, because I still have issues. I can't friend Kubo Torres. I can't follow Kubo Torres because of my numbers.
I've already told you have to go in and unfollow some numpties because you're probably following numpties. It happens to everybody.
Well, I mean, it's...
Domer with the description of stale. All moisture has left the bread. It has nothing to do with the way it tastes. It probably doesn't taste all that good, but it's not defined by taste.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't taste all that good, but there's still a little moisture in it. There's not a whole lot of moisture in it, but there's still some moisture.
I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Don't wait 2+ weeks to eat 4 muffins. Just don't do that anymore.
Well, then I need to have less breakfast food in the kitchen.
It's called planning, John. It's called
I don't
planning.
want to eat I don't want to eat the turnovers, and I don't want to eat.
No, it's just planning. It's just making sure you don't buy all the breakfast food when you only eat breakfast once a day. That's all. It's just planning. Proper planning.
Who are we talking about here?
You can plan.
But I like the blueberry muffins, though.
Well, then eat them when you buy them. That's the whole point. You keep trying to change this.
But I like the turnovers, too.
Then don't buy them at the same time. It's not rocket science. You're making it difficult, and it's confusing, and at least people are happy you're not sitting on the floor this time. That's good. Maybe you need to go sit in the floor with these bad muffin takes.
So is that timeout going to sit on the floor?
Yes, but that would be me being a bully too, and I'm just, my mind is blown by these muffin takes. It's ridiculous.
Well, they're breakfast takes. In this particular case, it's just
no. This is muffin. This is a crime against muffins.
By not eating them in a timely fashion.
Yes. It's incredibly upsetting. Yeah, good point from Chris Ashley. How much is a 4-pack of muffins, by the way? Like $3? $2?
No, these are the big industrial strength.
$4.
So it's like $6, I think.
Why are you paying $6 for 4 muffins? First off, that's bad. That's even worse planning. That's even more offensive.
Because they're like 2 by 2. I mean, they're thick things.
Well, if they're that special, then why didn't you eat them before they went stale?
Because I had the turnovers that were here in the house at the same time.
Do you enjoy being obtuse?
If I'm heading toward addle-minded, maybe.
Ay, Dios mío. All right, we're done with breakfast and muffins. Just try to plan better. How about that?
David at Not Baby Fark. MCG has a great quick breakfast recommendation for us.
Okay.
2 toasted and buttered chocolate chip Eggos with a sliced banana between.
Doesn't sound that bad.
Like an Eggo sandwich.
Yeah, it doesn't sound that bad. It's not bad.
So, no, I like that.
But that would require you, like, constructing things. And you can't even eat muffins on time, so constructing things, forget it. Ain't happening for John unless it's a weekend day where he has more time.
Accurate.
Hutcho has a good point. Don't go shopping when you're hungry and or buzzed, because then you end up with all the breakfast food. Don't go shopping when you're high on Mountain Dew, John. How about that?
I was going to say, Chucho, the last drop of alcohol I had was New Year's Day 1990.
You get out of whack when you drink too much Mountain Dew. That's your vice. So you don't get an excuse out of that.
Well, no, I'm just saying I don't drink alcohol. So,
I know. We know this, but your buzzing it's one of two things. It's either you've had too much Mountain Dew or you haven't had enough Mountain Dew. You have
Usually
to find
it's the latter, and I'd like to thank my doctor for that, considering I've lost 10 pounds.
You got to find something else.
Since I've cut my intake by 80% since the first of the year.
Well, that's good. Figure out your intake of muffins and pastries in a better way, and don't ever call them gamey again. Because that's just, like, seriously, people will really be disturbed about your eating habits if you're calling your muffins gamey.
Okay, well, then just a little chewy. A little on the chewy side. How about that?
Okay, that's better. It's not gamey. That actually fits the topic, yes.
Okay.
Good grief. You take a day off and things fall apart around here.
So how was your weekend?
It was fine. It was really fun to hang out with Soccer in the Streets and Michael Parkhurst on Saturday night. Parky told a lot of fun stories, raised some money for the organization. We're working on another trivia contest as well, so be on the lookout for more Soccer in the Streets trivia coming up. Trying to keep things going. It's an organization that, look, nonprofits are struggling right now. We all know this, but a nonprofit that a lot of their fundraising is done in person and through events, and you can't do those at the moment. That makes life a little difficult. So they're still doing a lot of cool things, which, I wondered what they could do at the moment, but they're getting meals, they're getting supplies out to kids and families, they're getting soccer balls out to families, they're doing, virtual training sessions. They're doing things to keep connected to their kids, which is really important right now. So we're trying to help where we can. It was awesome that Michael Parkhurst was part of that. It's awesome that Creature Comforts was a sponsor of that as well and was involved in helping put all that together. Some really good stories, some fun stories. I learned something that I did not know as well. So no, you had to be there. You had to be there. I'm not going to share that one because you had to be there. You had to contribute to the kids. Abby knows what I'm talking about.
That's good though. I'm glad that you had the evening with Cap and got things all squared away with Soccer in the Streets. It's very good stuff, and I've got my Soccer in the Streets gear, and I'll be the first person to sit here and say that I need to donate more to Soccer in the Streets on a yearly basis.
Yeah, Parky's dog is very...
Wait, is it Wake?
Deacon.
Deacon.
Very mouthy in terms of biting.
Oh.
I mean, it's a puppy.
He's a teether.
Yeah, it happens. It was a fun night, though. It was a fun conversation, fun times. Thanks again to everybody for making that happen. The quarterfinals Saturday night were lots of fun. We told you what was going to happen. We didn't have the scores exactly right, but we told you. Minnesota, it's the kryptonite for San Jose, and I know Jarrett Smith is probably still furious about it, but they've just always had San Jose's number. And Portland is pretty good. Mm-hmm. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. And they're both moving on to the semifinals. That's Wednesday and Thursday. I hate that we're having to wait so long. I really missed having MLS's back to watch last night. It was like, man, there's nothing on. This is not good. I
watched Liga MX and watched their doubleheader on Sunday night. So that was how I got to spend my Sunday night when we got back here into Office HD.
Yeah, I watched some of our friend John Freeman. He was calling Hartford and Loudoun from USL Championship with Devin Kerr. That was on ESPN Plus. Watched a decent bit of that. So not quite the same. Wanted the MLS's back tournament. Love the tournament play. So we'll get the semis on Wednesday and Thursday, and we'll get you set for those as we go. Big game Saturday that we talked about on the Power Hour, Chelsea and Arsenal. Lots of talking points out of this thing.
Yes.
Christian Pulisic gets the early goal. And then, man, watching him break away at the beginning of the second half, and you could tell about 4 or 5 steps before he took the shot that his hamstring went, and he gutted it out and then actually put on a pretty good shot. Wasn't able to bend it in. But it looked painful, and I wonder how long he's going to be out, how long that's going to take. Don't know when we'll know, what the extent of the damage is. It looked really bad. Yeah. Hopefully it's one of those, and hamstrings and quads can go down this road sometimes where it looks really bad initially, but the recovery isn't too bad because it's a quick turn. I mean, they've got Champions League. Now they're 3-0 down to Bayern Munich. They're probably not getting through, but they've got Champions League on Saturday. The problem is after that, so Saturday is the 8th. The new Premier League season starts on September 12th.
I was going to say 5 weeks?
Yeah, no, not even. I mean, it's rough. Frank Lampard's already said, it's too short. His players are running the risk of sustaining injuries. They had injuries in this match. He said the players need a break. That is why we have pulled 2 hamstrings and had players pull out of the game before this. I would like to think the Premier League would look seriously at that. I don't know if they can at this point.
Yeah,
I think they're already too far down the road, and that's not good.
Yeah, no, I think that when I saw that come across from Lampard about, can we get a later start, I just don't think that that's a physical possibility.
Well, he's right, though. No, I mean,
I'm saying that physically you can't adjust your schedule now because I think you're too far down that road. I agree that because of everything that Chelsea as a club is having to go through normally, and there's that word again, normally. I mean, when you have competitions with clubs that are outside of league play, I mean, FA Cup, they'll slide your schedules around and you'll do midweek and you'll maybe get things pushed a week or so down the line or things like that. You'll get things adjusted and reordered to where it will help you out. But right now, for the beginning of the Premier League schedule, that is locked in place, and I don't see what Chelsea can do out of the blocks because of the schedule that they have in international or in European competition. But you're stuck right now, I think, if you're Chelsea, and it's disappointing.
It's not just a Chelsea thing. It's not just a Manchester City thing because they're going to be in this as well. It's not anybody who's still playing. It's the whole league. And they're rushing it because they're trying to get back on a normal calendar, but they're going to do damage to the players. They're going to do damage to the level of competition because you're going to see more of what happened to Christian Pulisic. It's a problem. And Abby has a good point. It's like what we saw with Atlanta United from 2018 to 2019, where it was a quick turn after winning MLS Cup going into CONCACAF. It was a little bit more time because at least you had time away. You had about a month to be away from everything. I don't know what Chelsea's going to do. If they play Saturday and then they lose, and they should go out here, but you never know. Miracles can happen. Let's say they go out on Saturday. You're talking about, just over a month. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you going to give guys 2 weeks away? Then you're going to come back and you have to train to get ready for the season. Like, you don't have to go through a full preseason, but you're going to have some new players come in. You want to have some time with them. You're not really going to have any kind of preseason fixtures, I wouldn't imagine. Maybe one that's going to be more of a training exercise. So, it's not good for the game. It's not good for these players' health. It's not good for the quality. It's not good, period. And they should have pushed it back further, but with everything else going on in 21 that they've pushed back, like the European Championships, they're stuck. They're stuck, and you're in this boat where it's going to affect the level of the competition. The teams with more depth should be in a better position to handle it, but they're going to have to heavily rotate their squads either at the beginning to give guys a break and play guys who are not playing right now. You almost have to plan right now for that and say, all right, we want you for September 12th, so you're not playing Saturday. Go away, go home, get out of here. Don't do anything for a while. We'll see you back in a couple weeks. Like, you've got a plan now for September 12th. It's craziness. It's just craziness.
And think about the players that Chelsea's bringing in. It's Timo Werner and Ziyech to help you out up top, and to have those cogs ready and integrated and ready for a Premier League season. There's got to be that training element that's in there so they can get those relationships figured out.
Yeah, the chemistry. Forget the chemistry. That's not even the issue right now. They'll be ready for a Premier League season, but yeah, you won't have any chemistry because you're not going to be able to have a normal preseason. There's nothing you can do about that. Mm-hmm. It's one or the other. We want chemistry or we want players injured. You want people healthy, so you're going to have to deal with building chemistry while you go. So you're going to have to keep things simple and incorporate these guys as quickly as you can. The good thing is Timo Werner's had a lot of time off. He should be ready to go by September 12th. Ziyech's had a ton of time off. He should really be raring to go on the 12th. So they can start on the 12th. Are you going to have the chemistry with teammates? No. But you're going to be healthy. And that's the more important thing here. You're just going to have to build that chemistry. Teams with talent and teams with depth will have a big advantage from this. Teams that are thin and teams that aren't as deep are just going to struggle early in the season because you don't have enough time to recover. Now, one other thing about Chelsea, they've tried to extend a contract with Willian. He has refused another bid, according to Fabrizio Romano. They offered him to stay till June 22. No agreement there. Arsenal's now in talks about signing him on a free. Sky Sports is also reporting that Inter Miami has been in contact with him. There'd been talk about Barcelona, but Romano says there's no bids from Barcelona. Sky Sports said they were still thinking that Barcelona was in the mix. Nothing is on the table as of yet, but he could be going across town to Arsenal or Miami, which would be very interesting. Miami is also being linked to Luis Suarez. And this has happened before. This is coming up again. The Score with just the update on it. Mundo Deportivo had the news out of Spain in that, Beckham is targeting Suarez. He's 33 years old. He has another year on his deal at Barcelona. So they would have to spend something to get him. And we know Barcelona could use some cash coming in. So is this going to happen where Miami has struggled in the attack? They don't really have that number 9 yet. They've left the number 9 shirt open for whoever it's going to be. Is it Luis Suarez? Or I don't think you're going to be able to get Suarez and Willian, but Is it going to be Suarez? It's going to cost them. It's not going to come cheap.
Now, we've heard a lot of big names come across, and I see Luis Suarez, and if it comes to pass, I'd like to see the dollar sign that's attached to it, just to know what the price tag for something like that is going to be. But I want to see how someone like that can be in MLS. And so, if it's Willian, that'd be fantastic. Love to see it. If it's Suarez, that'd be fantastic. Love to see it. But I also would love to know what the price tag is for me, just so I could kind of sit there and see what the market is yielding these days when it comes to players and budgets for individual teams and things like that, and like what we discussed with Barca about bottom lines and things like that. So I'm looking at the price tags and all these, and when these deals come to pass, whatever they are, give them the context for the current economic situation.
And before you finish, there's already been 2 jokes about biting and Miami needing a little more bite in their lineup.
A little more bite in that lineup. Yeah.
Already got 2 in the Twitch. Very, very impressed with you guys this morning.
That's what they're there for. That's fantastic that they're right there ahead of me when it comes to the bite jokes for Luis Suarez.
Don't insult the people, John. That's not good.
Jason Nix, when we went down the Pulisic road a little bit, he says, what's his next year look like? Up, down, or a plateau?
It's hard to say. I want to see how long this hamstring injury could affect him now. That's the big question at this point is he going to miss extended time early on? Also, his U.S. men's national team duties are going to get interesting here because it's looking like a pretty crowded fixture list at the moment. That could all change depending on how you're going to be able to do international travel in October. But can he get better? Yeah. I mean, there's still things in his game that can improve. He can be more consistent. But he's been really good. If he plays at this level for an extended period of time, I'm good. I'm not demanding that he continues to get better and better and better. I hope he does. I hope he hasn't plateaued. But if this is the plateau, that's fine. That's good. That's cool. I have no problem with that.
Good plateau so far.
Yeah, it shouldn't even be an issue. If this is the best of Christian Pulisic, then that's okay. That's okay. It's really good.
Now, I was trying to find an article where over in England, and it was in a part of our Chelsea discussion, where this one particular pundit said that this setup that we're looking at for the Premier League is going to be bad for all of the clubs that we're used to seeing at the top of the ladder because of all of the schedule compression and because of all of the competitions that they're all involved in. It could be bad for clubs like Manchester City and Liverpool and those that we saw at the top of the table this year.
Why?
That's what I'm trying to get the details because I wanted to get it right. But the intimation in the article was that because of the compressed schedule, like Manchester City still playing in European theater, Chelsea still in the European theater, Wolves still in European theater.
Liverpool's not, though.
I know. But the club that was focused on was Manchester City.
Okay.
In the article.
That's what I was trying to get to. You mentioned Liverpool, and I was like, well, wait a minute. They're not playing, so they should be actually having an advantage at this point because their guys have been able to rest.
Yeah, but the author focused on Manchester City as an example. That the upcoming season and the timetable and all of the scrunchiness right now that we're seeing with the 2020-2021 calendar would be detrimental to clubs like Manchester City because of what we're talking about with Chelsea.
Yeah, Manchester City's got depth, so I'm not as worried about a club like that. You're going to have to manage it well. You're going to have to rotate guys early on. It does open the door. Chris Ashley's already jumping up and down about Leeds and Marcelo Bielsa. Let's keep the expectations in check. If they are mid-table next year, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think they're going to be a club that's going to go out and spend a bunch and try to become something they're not. I think you're going to upgrade in some spots, but you're going to work with the guys who understand the system that Bielsa's wanting to play, and you'll freshen up where you need to freshen up. It will help those teams that are not playing in Europe in August. It'll help the teams that are just outside of that, but they've got to have the depth to deal with it too, because it's not like they got a whole bunch more time off. You know, I mean, it's a few weeks here and there, so you're going to need depth this season, and you know, you're also going to have to rely on other players in your system. You're going to have to rely on some of your youth players coming through. You're going to have to give games to people to rotate and keep people fresh, because it's not just about being fresh to start. It's being fresh, going into the Boxing Day period. It's being fresh in the tail end of the season. You've got to rotate and find time for guys to have off, because they're not getting a normal off season. Now, you could say, well, they had their off season during the worst part of the pandemic. And sure, well, then you're telling them that they're playing, a 50-plus game season, because you came back and you played, then you had a little bit of time off, then you started a new season. So either way, it's rough. There's no easy way to deal with this for any team. MLS will probably be in the same kind of situation, because you've got more flexibility in when 21 starts for a season, but still, you're not going to want to push it back too much, because you've got the World Cup in 22. You're going to have to deal with that at some point, either in the 21 season, where you try to start early and finish early, or if you push the start of the season back in 21 a little bit to buy some more time, you're going to have to do it in 22, because you're going to have to be done with MLS Cup by early November because of the World Cup. So, pick your year, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it. So MLS could be looking at a very similar thing for teams that go to MLS Cup or go deep in the playoffs, finish in mid-December, and be back on the training ground at the mid-January. And teams in CONCACAF, if CONCACAF's on a normal schedule in 21, playing games in mid-February. So it's going to be rough all the way around, but that's what all this has done to the scheduling.
Yeah, and you mentioned leads and schedule compression and all that stuff, especially around Boxing Day. For me, I would ask any Leeds supporter, Chris Ashley or whomever, how much confidence do you have in your goalkeeper? Using the Sheffield United example, we saw what Dean Henderson can mean to a club, and all the clean sheets that he had in the 2019-2020 season, and they were in competition for European spots until the return. Still finished respectably in top 10 in the table. So I would point toward goalkeeping specifically also as something to keep an eye on for the promoted sides. West Brom, Leeds, and whoever the third is going to be, to make sure that you can get through those situations, because if you've got a solid keeper that can give you a bunch of clean sheets or give you a running clean sheets, it gives you a fighting chance.
Yeah, you're going to need a defense in front of that goalkeeper too, unless the goalkeeper's going to stand on their head the whole time. And that's one of the hardest things. I mean, that's where I think you see the top teams separate themselves a little bit, because they're able to invest defensively, and teams that have limited resources are going to invest that more in the attack. So we will see. Michael Rees with a question after talking about MLS and the knockout round that we've seen. We have not answered this yet. How does Philly keep getting disrespected?
Hey, I'm gonna put it this way: if the juice box purveyors want to keep doing that, then I'm going to keep putting juice boxes on Philly and nod my head and tip my hat and sit there and go, you guys keep right on going. You keep doing that.
BetMGM is pretty much sitting back and letting the market dictate, because they do have Portland and Orlando as the favorites in the semifinals, but not by much. It's Portland plus 150, Philadelphia plus 170, Orlando's plus 150, and Minnesota's plus 175. So it's pretty wide open. But, yeah, Philadelphia should be the favorite there. And I like Portland a lot. I'm a huge Giovanni Savarese fan and the work that he does. But Philadelphia has been the best team that's left. They have been the most impressive team in this tournament. Orlando is really close. I would put Minnesota as the favorite in that one as well. So I'm going with the underdogs as they're currently constructed on BetMGM, Philadelphia and Minnesota to go to the final.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And it stunned me. Well, I guess I should say that Philadelphia kept getting those high plus 200 numbers as long as they did. That to me was one of the shocks of looking at MLS's back as a tournament, was just seeing, after everything that we see with Philadelphia on a game-by-game basis, they're still getting over 200s. And I'm like, okay, you guys want to keep doing that, that's great. You're wrong, but that's great if that's what you do. If juice boxes are your thing, hey, more power to you. Yeah, that's nope. I was completely in disagreement with what I kept seeing, but all right. Hopefully, maybe after this past round that this was a lesson that was given to where the number isn't as large as it's been in the past. You mentioned where they are, but it's not as big as it was, so we'll see.
They've been in that 170 ballpark a few times in the tournament. Not everything's been over 200. They've just constantly been the underdog in the game, which has been surprising. And, Adrian Heath has ridden that all the way to a semifinal, being the underdog, nobody giving them any credit, which has been true. I mean, is he playing it up a little bit? Yeah, of course. But is it true? Yeah, everybody put Columbus in the final, or at least in the semifinal. Everybody did. Everybody was all over Columbus. They're great. They're outstanding. They are the best we've seen. I just didn't think they were. I'm not fully convinced of them defensively or in the defensive midfield, and just need to see more from them to get to that point. But Minnesota's really good, and Luis Amarilla is a really good forward in this league. They've been able to handle Ike Opara being out. They've gotten Kevin Molino back. They've gotten Ethan Finley back in this tournament. Now, Molino's had some injury issues during the tournament, but this is a very, very good team. Portland is a very, very good team. I was high on Portland coming into the tournament. They've lived up to that. Philadelphia, I had a couple of questions, but they've lived up to everything. Orlando is the biggest surprise of the four. Orlando is a team that I expected to be better, no question about it, with Oscar Pareja, but I didn't expect them to get to the semis. I didn't give them zero chance against LAFC, but I thought LAFC would find a way through that. It's kind of surprising that they didn't, but Orlando was that good in that match. They were that good, that organized, to keep LAFC off the shot board in the first half, shots on goal. That's a credit to the organization that Orlando had in that match. They've been that good in this tournament. Can they do it against Minnesota? Because I think Minnesota will test them in a different way. Minnesota, no problem sitting back, no problem playing on the counter, and Orlando will have to carry the play. They've got the players to do that, but they're going to have to flip the script a little bit from how they got past LAFC. Are they ready for that yet? I don't think so. I think it's Philadelphia and Minnesota in the final.
No, I agree with you. I think that it is. I think it is those two. And I know that pretty much everybody and their mother going into this past weekend was sitting there and crowing about LAFC being the favorite to win the tournament. But I think that here we looked at LAFC and saw ways that you could knock them off their game. And going up against a coach like Oscar Pareja, last time I checked, Oscar Pareja is not the coaching equivalent of chopped liver. The guy knows what he's doing, and I think that he came up with a great defensive game plan to frustrate LAFC and give them that zero that we saw in the first 45 minutes. I mean, what was the last time that LAFC, it had been over a year since LAFC had zero shots on goal in the first 45 minutes of a match?
Something like that. I don't have it written down. I don't have it on my calendar.
But no, it just, to see LAFC frustrated by Orlando City, I think it gave everybody a blueprint or an idea going forward about how to possibly go up against an LAFC.
Everybody's known how to go up against an LAFC. It's executing. It's not rocket science. It's not, it's a secret plan that only Oscar Pareja knew. No, you have to be good. You have to be organized. You can't give them space. You can't get caught in transition. Everybody's known that. LAFC is not good in knockout games. Period. This is not the first time. 2018, they lost at home to RSL in the playoffs, game 1. They mentally melt down in front of our eyes. It was bad. Last year, they won a playoff game. They beat LA Galaxy.
Yeah.
That wasn't saying much. The LA Galaxy defending was bad last year. Somehow it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Then they lost at home to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Got beat up. They got past a game here. They beat Seattle in this knockout game. And then they lost to Orlando. They've
That's
won 2 knockout games in MLS play. They've lost 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's not rocket science. It's execution. Orlando executed. That's what it was. There's nobody sitting back and saying, "Oh, now we know how to beat LAFC." No. You have to execute. Period. And Orlando did. You have to give Pereira credit for preparing them. You have to give those players credit for executing.
And once again, we talked about the back line, and we saw Jordan Harvey come in as a late sub, and he was late in his marking on a corner, and João Moutinho puts it in the
Jordan Harvey's not who you want marking anybody on a corner. He's like 5'9" or so. That's poor organization more than anything. Blame Jordan Harvey all you want, but it's poor organization. It's a bad matchup for him. He shouldn't be in that spot.
And then you tied at ones, and you go into penalties, and Harvey hits it off the crossbar, and sometimes that's all it takes.
Did Jordan Harvey kick your dog at some point? Man, why are you throwing Jordan Harvey under the bus so bad this morning?
Jordan Harvey just had a rough night. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's not on him. He had nothing to do with him not getting any shots on goal in the first half.
Nope.
Like that's not on Jordan Harvey. I mean, he came off the bench because you're running into the ground because it's been a tough tournament. So, I mean, he's a veteran who came off the bench and didn't perform. He shouldn't have been put in that marking position against João Moutinho. That was a bad organization to begin with, and he missed a penalty. It happens. It's not about that, though. That's not what cost LAFC the game. You can, if you want to go down to, yes, if he had made that, well, then we'd still be doing a penalty shootout until somebody missed. If he had marked better on that, sure. If we want to blame it all on Jordan Harvey, fine. It's not Jordan Harvey's fault. LAFC got outplayed by Orlando. Orlando was the better team. They should have won it in regulation. They were the better team on the night, and they deserved to win in the shootout. They get through. Sometimes it goes that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where we are. But as you mentioned, you got the numbers. It's 2-3 in knockout games for LAFC in their history.
In MLS play, it's not including Open Cup play because those are knockouts too, and they've gotten to a semifinal, they've gotten to a quarterfinal. They haven't been to an Open Cup final either, but they've won a couple of Open Cup knockout games against MLS competition. It's a problem. Shiva says they need a plan B or they need to execute it. That's the issue with where LAFC is. Bob Bradley is a great, great manager. Bob Bradley is also stubborn. And Bob Bradley is also determined to prove that his way is the way. And I get it. He was 100% unfairly treated at Swansea. No way in the world you can justify the way he was treated. He was brought in, and it either he misread it or the team wasn't clear. His job was, in his mind, not on the line immediately, or he would have managed it differently. He wouldn't have been so open. He would have been trying to build something. He would have been managing to get results and for survival. He didn't get to the upcoming transfer window that he expected to get to. He was run off. And one major reason why he was run off is because he was an American. Completely and utterly unfair. And I know there's Americans in the ownership group and all that, but the pressure on them and on him was because he was an American manager. It was completely unfair. So he's got a big chip on his shoulder, and I understand it. But you can't always win by playing one way and one way only. You just can't. So they've got to figure something out. When a team does that to them, they've got to have another gear. They've got to have something else. And they haven't. Now they are missing Carlos Vela. And that, now we're going to talk about that. And even though that's been pushed to the side throughout the whole tournament, and, well, they've been overcoming it, well, it hurts them. They're not as good as they would be with Carlos Vela. Carlos Vela's better than Brian Rodriguez. No way around it. That's the cards that you're dealt in this. You had a way, you had an opportunity to make changes at halftime. And they were better in the second half, but they weren't the better team on the night. And this happens too often to them against teams that put Seattle to the side because they won MLS Cup last year, but RSL in 2018, LAFC was a better team. Orlando right now, even without Vela, LAFC is a better roster. And they're not winning in games that they should when everything's on the line. That's a problem. And if that means they need to not risk as much and they need to be a little more conservative in those moments and pick their spots, They're going to have to make adjustments if they're going to win MLS Cup. I've talked about it a million times, but Tata Martino made big adjustments going into the postseason in 2018 to play postseason knockout soccer. And they won. But that's not how they played on decision day and before decision day. They did not play that way. He adjusted to what that situation called for. Knockout rounds are different. Mm-hmm. They're different in a World Cup. They're different when you get to a Champions League. Cup play is different to begin with. You have to be able to adjust. And sometimes teams that play wide open, risky soccer can get hurt in knockout games if you don't get those goals. If you don't get those goals to show for it, one bad day in front of goal can ruin you. You've got to be able to adjust when you're having that day or you're facing that opponent who makes you have that day. And LAFC has not shown an ability to do that enough yet. That's a problem. You cannot be the best team in MLS history. You cannot be the best if you're not winning these games against RSL and Orlando. You can't. So they've got to find a way. They've got to learn from this at some point.
Two other things that I've noticed over time with LAFC is that Bob Bradley still doesn't seem comfortable with his goalkeepers, whether it's Miller, Cisniega, Vermeer. He seems to, I don't know if he wants to ride a hot hand or if he's just got a quick trigger finger, but you've seen these three guys drifting in and out over the last year plus when it comes to who's going to start for him. And then also, I've looked at LAFC, and I don't know if it's a lack of trust in the deeper numbers of your 18s for Bob Bradley, but he seems to have a very short bench. And I don't know if that costs him later in the year and down the line because of wanting to start the same guys all the time, get those results, and move on to the next, and have that cost you because they've spent so much energy in the regular season leaning in toward the playoffs.
It's easy answers to that. In a cap league, if you're going to have a starting 11 as good as LAFC, you're going to have to sacrifice somewhere. And they sacrifice on their bench. And he's not developing those players fully to make up for that. So you can't have a bench as good as your starters in MLS, period. You definitely can't do it when you've invested the way that they have in their first choice. And it hurts them at goalkeeper. Tyler Miller was good. Not great, but good. Whatever reason, Bradley didn't trust him because he made some big mistakes in big moments. You move on. Vermeer, I mean, again, it's, for them, 7 games. And Vermeer hasn't played all of them, but it's still really early times. I think anybody saying that anybody is a bust right now is ridiculous. It's a very small sample size in 2020, but Vermeer needs to be at least more consistent. He's shown an ability to make big saves, but he's also shown an ability to make some mistakes. He wasn't the problem on Saturday or on Friday. That had nothing to do with Vermeer. Vermeer did not cost them the game. So let's be clear on that. In these games, in these knockout games that they've come up short, goalkeeping hasn't been the issue.
Yeah.
Their goalkeeping can be better, but you're going to have to sacrifice somewhere. So Vermeer could be okay. It's still early. I'm not saying he's not the guy. I know Ricardo's saying that. I'm not saying that yet. But if you're going to have as strong of a team as you've built, you're going to have to find a way to out-scout people at some position on the field. Goalkeeper could be it, especially in MLS where you have, I think, a lot of American talent at goalkeeper that you can bring in at cost-effective cap numbers. And I was surprised when they went to Vermeer in the first place because of that. Because I feel like there are guys in general in USL Championship or on benches in MLS that could give you the same or more for a much lower number. And then that goes back to your first part about the bench. Your bench is what it is because that's what you have left to spend. And that's just all it is. And they haven't, pushed players through the academy yet, so you're not getting homegrowns through that you can work through. They started their academy with a U12 team the first year they started it, and they're growing the academy like that. That was their approach. They didn't have, even Atlanta, who has had, an Andrew Carlton pick up minutes here and there, a George Bello push through and become a starter now, a George Campbell push through. They haven't had anything like that. So you're not getting that, so you're going out and picking up guys on minimum deals, and it shows. They're on those deals for a reason, and Bradley hasn't developed the trust in them. So, yeah, you're rolling your best players out as much as possible, and it is what it is. That's not an issue again now because you're 7 games in, but in general, yeah, you wear down. It's something that Bielsa's went through with his teams in wearing teams down. It's something that Klopp went through. It's something that Pep Guardiola went through. Every manager at the top level has gone through it. If you're going to play high tempo, high intensity, you've got to find opportunities to give guys some breathing space in that, or you've got to build up the depth. In MLS, you can't build up the depth to the same degree because you don't have the money to do it because you have a cap. So you've got to find opportunities, some games here and there, to say, you know what, we're going to play in Montreal this week or this midweek. Carlos, you're not coming. Atuesta, you're not coming. Stay home. Sleep in. You're not coming to this one. Rest. Find times to give them some rest. You're going to have to do that. But more importantly, it's the way you play. You're going to have to be able to adjust in games where you're not just running teams off the field. You're going to have to find ways to win games when you don't have that.
El Mata flows in this morning as a fellow member of the Swans Trust. He says, Bradley's Swansea move was wrong from so many perspectives, but it's funny that L.A. and Swansea are teams that dominate the ball. As a Swansea fan, I'm looking at LAFC and imagining what could have been.
Yeah, exactly. Craziness. I mean, I just thought it was insulting the way they handled it. And, yeah, looking at what happened afterwards, definitely what could have been. Absolutely. Would he have had – would he have – this is a crazy question to ask for some people, but would he have had the same level of talent at Swansea that he has at LAFC to work with? I don't know if that's a guarantee.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're getting a Carlos Vela, who's a special player. I don't know if you're going to get a Diego Rossi, who's a special player. I don't know if you're going to get those guys to Swansea.
Yeah.
He would have had talent, but different kind of talent. So who knows? But, yeah, he was mistreated there. I think it was completely and utterly wrong, and it hurt Swansea as well as it put a chip on Bradley's shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, Jason Levian and the rather LAFC-like looking owners group of 20, I want to say. It's either 20 or 30 other individuals, including Mindy Kaling, really have not shown the desire to invest in players and bring in players with big price tags or larger price tags than what we've seen in the past. So, hey, I'll take as, once again, full disclosure, remember the Swans Trust, I will take what we did this past season, getting into the promotion playoff. I'll take that as a fantastic year getting into it, and just hope that you can build from there. El Mataflo wraps up. He says, I'm also still super jelly that Orlando has Jegson Mendez. I dislike Orlando and Florida in general, but that's more personal. But I really like seeing Mendez playing well.
Mendez is a good player. When they got him last year, I hope they were going to give him time to settle because he's a really talented central midfielder. And Pareja will absolutely get the best out of him. It's a good squad. I mean, they've still got some spots they have to upgrade on. I mean, Moutinho gets the tying goal here, but I don't think he's a top-level left back in this league. I honestly think he might be more of a 6. I just worry about him with pace on the left side. You've still got some questions defensively for them. They've got their goalkeeper. They're set there. They've got Nani, who is still special. Chris Mueller's becoming special. Dom Dwyer's out for an extended period of time, but that's not necessarily a bad thing the way Dwyer's played. Akindele now gets to be the guy. We'll see what he can do in a long period of time. He's going to be pushed by Benji Michel, I think Michel could be a talented player. He's still young. He's still, I think, putting it all together, but he could be one that could be a surprise. Pereira is a really good number 10. I like him a lot. I've always liked Uri Rosell and just never understood how O'Connor just didn't get it, just didn't understand how to use him. So they've got the pieces of a very good team. They've still got some upgrading to do. But, Mendez is a big part of this group of players that suits Oscar Pareja. And don't think that Luis Muzzi wasn't thinking at some point, did he know he was going to get Pareja this season? Maybe not. But did he know that he was going to be making a run for Pareja? Yeah. I mean, they worked together in Dallas. So I'm sure that he was thinking that, because it's not like Tijuana is the most stable club to be at anyway. So he built a team that Pareja or somebody like Pareja would do really well with. It's been good so far. And the old Orlando, it's dead and buried. Orlando's going to be a contender with Pareja in charge.
Is there a Mueller injury update? Because I know that he had his arm in a sling in the second half and was sitting on the bench watching the rest of that match.
Not yet. They're going to keep it quiet. Julia Poe said that I think she heard good news on it. It didn't sound that bad. So it's going to. I think he's going to be okay. I don't think there's anything that's going to keep him out. I think he's going to have to play through some discomfort. But Julia Poe had at least a positive outlook on it at this point. We'll probably hear about it. They play Thursday. Probably hear about it tomorrow.
What else is going on Twitch?
All kinds of stuff as usual. Lots of conversations going on there. We'll come back to it. I wanted to hit a couple other bits of news and notes. LA Galaxy are being linked, along with Miami, who's linked to everybody at the moment, to Javier Pastore. He could be leaving Roma. Many clubs in MLS have asked his agent for information. He's rejected bids from China, and Roma is reportedly looking for around $12 million for him, which is steep. I don't know how the LA Galaxy would make that work, but that's just me. They've found ways to do it before. Maybe they'll do it again. Miami could, because they have that designated player slot open, and they could definitely use him. I wonder what that would mean for how they play Pizarro and him. I think they need a number 9 more, but we'll see. Could just be, hey, these are two teams that spend a lot of money. Hey, let's link them to our client. Yeah. Hey, this is a good plan. We'll see. Other stuff in Europe. Eddie Howe is now available. He has left his job as Bournemouth manager, mutual consent on Saturday. Right time, because he's been there,
5 years.
Well, not as the manager, no.
No.
We're talking about being a manager. He hasn't been a manager for 25 years because he's a very young man.
Started when he was 12.
Yeah, pretty much. He was appointed caretaker manager in 2008. He went over to Burnley for, a year?
Yeah.
And then came back. Got them to the Premier League. They stayed for 5 years. I mean, he was caretaker manager in League 2 with them and got them to the Premier League. So, yeah, it's the right time. Be very curious to see what he does next. I don't think he's going to rush into anything. And I know the name's already come up. He's on the list. I know. I get it. He's available. But after that, because that's not, again, he'd been there 25 years as a player and a manager. So leaving that is not an easy thing to do. He's probably going to take time off. Yeah. And he probably should. I don't know if he'd be the best fit here anyway, but with that in mind, I don't know if that really works. I don't think the timing works out. So Eddie Howe is on the market. We'll see. I'm sure he'll be connected to people. Don't worry.
Yes.
Chris Ashley, your Leeds United, Tariq Panja writing about them at the New York Times. The San Francisco 49ers own 10%. They are looking to increase that investment. It's going to cost them. It's worked out pretty well for Leeds' majority owner, Andrea Radrizzani, who, if you've seen the documentary on Amazon Prime, he talked about it a lot, and that was the season where they came up short in the playoffs, and he talked about it after the season. He's like, I'm not selling. I am interested in bringing on other investors to take this to another level. If they had come in at that time, it would have probably been less money. Now they're coming into the Premier League with that revenue. Mm-hmm. He's going to be able to jack that price up a little bit.
Yes.
There were some reports that one of the Middle Eastern investment groups, and I don't remember which one, one of the many who has invested in clubs, I think it's the one who owns PSG, if I'm not mistaken, was interested in potentially buying a large stake, and that fell through. This is a much smarter move because you're talking about people who are already invested and increasing their stake, and it's worked out really well. Chris Ashley says that Andrea is great, but Victor Orta is the true gem of Leeds leadership, and he's been outstanding. I watched that series again over the weekend actually to kind of get caught up again on how it ended the year before. Kind of been wrapping my head around how it's going to look for them in the Premier League, and it's going to be something that we'll talk a lot on Soccer Over There about on Monday nights, because they're going to come in and play. People thought Pep Guardiola was going to come in and be so different for the Premier League. People thought Jurgen Klopp was going to come in and be so different for the Premier League. I think this is the most different style that's come into the Premier League with what Bielsa is going to bring to the table. So I'm fascinated to see it. I'm fascinated to see how it plays out over a campaign. A lot of people thought his style, because, just like we talked about Bob Bradley and LAFC, just like we talked about having a plan B and having times where you can slow down and rest guys, the championship is the most grueling competition you're going to find. And for Bielsa, a guy who has consistently talked about he burns his teams out, they're dead at the end of the season. And you could have said that when they lost in the playoff. To do what he did, it's impressive. And to now go to the Premier League, which the competition level jacks up considerably, but it's not quite as grueling of a competition because it's not as many games. I mean, it's 8 less games, but every game's going to be more challenging. I can't wait to see how it plays out. So we'll be talking about it a good bit, but I want to see what Orta does in the transfer market, because I get the impression that Leeds and Bielsa is not necessarily going to be looking at the same players that everybody's looking at. They're going to be somewhat like, and it's not a Red Bull style, don't get me wrong, but Red Bulls and their organization, they look at players that fit that profile. I think Leeds is going to be looking for players that fit that profile. They might not be the $50 million guys down the street that everybody's bidding for. They're going to be guys that fit what Bielsa wants to do. And I think they're going to be either upgrades or shoring up parts of the squad that he wants to build up a little bit. I wonder how much they'll look different than they did in the championship. I don't think they'll look as different as a lot of teams that get promoted. I don't think they're going to overhaul the entire roster. But the kinds of additions that he brings in, I don't know. We'll see. I think the English media could be surprised, like, oh, why are they going to get this guy? Why are they doing this? Why this guy? Why not over here? Why not this? It's going to be a huge opportunity for Orta because he's going to have more resources to work with, but he's going to be able to really put a stamp on what this club is and what Bielsa wants with it, with the roster in this window.
To answer your question, it was back in April, and it was QSI and PSG chief Nasser Al-Khelaifi. They were having discussions with Radrizzani about either investment or takeover. But QSI was back in April.
You've watched Leeds a good bit, and Chris Ashley is a huge Leeds fan. Adam from 816 says, what does Bielsa do that's so different?
Wow. I mean, Chris Ashley, for me, would probably be the better one to talk about, but to discuss Leeds because he's more into the Bielsa thing than
from your view. But it's not about that. I'm not asking for a tactical profile. You've watched it, so when you watch Leeds, what's different?
I look at Leeds, and for me, it's the best way I can describe it almost is controlled chaos. And I've seen all of this go and pedal down and all this kind of stuff. And I guess it goes back to the style of having players there, and you want to have your pedal down and get as far ahead of everybody else as what you can see. But for me, it's that idea of controlled chaos, getting in somebody's face. If they have the ball, try to get it away from them as quickly as possible, turn it around, get something done, and score. So for me, I guess that's the best way that I could describe what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it's high intensity. It's high tempo. It is. There's a couple things structurally, and he's adapted it to a degree at Leeds. You go back and you look at his teams. At Newell's back in the day with Tata Martino playing in it, with Pochettino playing in it. You look at his teams with Chile, which is probably where I think a lot of people started to really closely pay attention to Bielsa. He loves to play a 3-3-1-3, even when his formation looks different. A lot of times it kind of defaults to that, or you see a player like Calvin Phillips, who has just blossomed under him as that holding midfielder. They play a line of four, but in possession it turns into that 3-3-1-3 kind of look because Phillips drops in between the two center backs. So there's a lot of rotation. Chris Ashley says he's very Tata-esque, which would make sense. I mean, that's one of Tata's mentors. Wants to possess the ball, wants to attack when on defense, lots of play up the wings, doesn't want to change the lineup from match to match because it's all about the consistency of the way they play. So with changes, you lose consistency.
Yeah.
He wants them to be vertical. He wants them to play in the other team's half. It's not possession in a Barcelona sense. Now, to look at how teams have kind of evolved over time, when Pep retired as a player and wanted to get into management, one of the first people he went to go talk to was Bielsa. He went to Argentina for a day to talk to him, and he says that Bielsa is the best coach out there. Pochettino says he's like his second dad. Pochettino has elements of Bielsa, but a little more pragmatic. Pep, pragmatic's not a word that normally gets thrown around with him, but compared to Bielsa, it's more pragmatic. Tata's the most pragmatic of those managers because Bielsa would never have played in the playoffs like Tata did in 2018. And I don't know if Pep or Pochettino would either, to be honest. Tata is known as being one of the more pragmatic versions of him. Jorge Sampaoli is another one who he took over from him at Chile. You see people put their spin on it, but Bielsa's is the most, I guess, idealistic would be the way to put it. Because, and it's why everybody goes to him. It's why everybody tries to learn from him. But his is the truest to the vision. It takes a ton of risks, as Chris says. It's very nerve-wracking because it's not a style that is based on we've got a 2-0 lead, we're going to sit back and hold this. It is we're going to go find 3, 4, and 5, and you can give up 1 and 2 that way. I mean, you go back and you watch that documentary, there's so many games where it's either way. Either they scored early and they give up something late, or they fell behind and they came back to win, or they came back to draw. Yeah. It's just constant. It's different. I mean, is there some comparisons to like a Jurgen Klopp or the Gegenpressing and the German style? Sure. I mean, you could probably draw parallels. They developed in separate universes, though. Like, you see the managers who developed off of the Bielsa tree, and you see the managers that developed off of the German tree. Klopp and Guardiola are the two biggest from each of those. Are there similarities in the way that they play? Yeah, they've probably come closer to one another, but they started out here, and they've probably developed to come closer to one another. And Bielsa's just an interesting guy. I mean, he's very. Tata Martino is like this too. It's something that Tata picked up from him, and I'm sure many of these other guys are as well. Pep can call his shots. Pep can say, I want you before the next season to paint all the walls pink in the office, and they'll do it immediately. Like, he's got that kind of sway. Bielsa, not to something that trivial, but Bielsa is very demanding on what he wants, and they talked about it in the documentary, and it's been a hallmark of all of the jobs he's had. He wants to know that he's going to have everything he needs to work. He doesn't ask for too much. He doesn't, come in and say, I need $200 million in the transfer kitty. No, it's, am I going to have, everything I need? Am I going to be able to, if I ask you for these players, are you going to go try to get them? That was why he left at Lazio. He went to Lazio, and he gave them a list of players, and he said, these are the players I want, and they said they couldn't get them, and when he then went back behind the club's back and talked to agents and said, were you approached by Lazio? They said, no, we never talked to them. He walked.
Yeah.
He's not going to put up with that. So he almost interviews the club that he is going to work for. Tata was the same way. Tata, and it was something that very early on when the rumor started about Tata Martino, I talked to some people I knew from Argentina, and that's one thing they said is like, if he comes, he's going to come because he's comfortable with where this club is going. And ultimately he was. And he had, he had a lot of say. Did he have final say? No. And Bielsa doesn't either. Bielsa, they understand the business. I mean, you can give a list of players and say, hey, go try to get these guys, but you understand you can't get everybody. Yeah. You have to trust that the club's going to go get some players for you as well. You're talking about, I want players of this type, and if you can get me this player, this is what I want. If not, I want somebody like that. There's lots of different elements to it, but Bielsa's teams play Matias Almeida and San Jose is a variant of it. It's different. It's risky. It's high risk, high reward, but it's a fun thing to watch, especially if you're a neutral. If you are a Leeds fan, it might be a little more nerve-wracking, but if you're a neutral, it's a fun team to watch. Very high energy, very high tempo. You don't have the ball. You want it back quickly. Vertical, but vertical to play in the other team's half. Not vertical, and this is one of the differences. Like if you wanted to compare it and say, well, the Red Bulls do these things. The Red Bulls aren't looking to have 60% of the possession. It's all about where you have the possession. That's the biggest difference for me with a Bielsa team. They will play quickly into the other half and then set up shop and play in the other half. And if they have a bunch of possession there, cool. They don't really care about possession in their back line just to have the ball. That's not the goal. So that's one of the things that is different. So it's going to be fun. And we'll talk about it a good bit on Soccer Over There because it's going to be a really fascinating story from the style of play, from the personalities involved. All of it's going to be really, really interesting. So we'll be following it closely on Soccer Over There on Monday nights, which we'll be back tonight for Soccer Over There. Not sure which cast of characters we will have with us yet, but we'll be talking all of the soccer from around the world this evening, 7 o'clock, twitch.tv/soccerdown here and on the app. One of the people that allows us to talk so much soccer on a regular basis. It wasn't that good. Settle down. Those muffins are getting to you. Steve Apolinsky. John, tell them about Steve Apolinsky.
Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. Proud supporters of everything soccer down here and the SDH network. Wrongful death and serious injury attorneys for clients in Georgia and Alabama. Over 30 years of experience. Over $40 million in judgments for their clients. If this is a road that you unfortunately have to go down, you can catch up with Steve a bunch of different ways. You can go to their website, aa-legal.com, and when you hit that URL, a pop-up window pops up. That's why they call them pop-up windows. Have a live conversation with somebody 24/7, 365 or 366 in a year like this. Or you can shoot Steve an email at steve@aa-legal.com. Or give them a buzz. Get a free consultation, 404-377-9191. Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend Magazine, top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia for all the work they do for wrongful death and serious injury cases. Apolinsky and Associates, the website once again is aa-legal.com.
All right. What do we have on the Twitters, John?
We are caught up on the Twitters, and that's why I wanted to ask about Twitch. But Nick did come up with a good lead-in for Soccer Over There tonight. He says, Leeds is insane preparation partnered with nuclear intensity. Bielsa will have 10-page dossiers on the third-choice keeper.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the other thing about Bielsa, and it came apparent during the Spygate crazy story where he came in and showed you everything that he does to prepare on playing somebody. It's a ridiculous level. This was a guy who watched tape after tape after tape after tape after tape. He probably still has a bunch of VHS cassettes. Now it's a little bit easier for him, but yeah, he is an obsessive when it comes to this stuff. So he will be fully prepared for the Premier League. And Chris Ashley with a good point. I don't think Leeds is trying to come in and flame out after a year, but I don't think Bielsa is going to change who he is either. He is somebody who wants to win and wants to stay up, no questions asked, but he's not going to do it in a defensive way. Will he make some adjustments? Yeah, I think we saw adjustments from year 1 to year 2 with Leeds. But it's going to be true to who he is and what he is. So I'm interested to see, how this goes, because I guess the other thing that I noticed with Leeds, and it was true with his Newell's teams that ended up winning the title as well, the first team to win the title from that club in Argentina. They go through waves in a season, and maybe more so than most teams. Like, they're very streaky. When it's on, they'll go on a streak where they're just really difficult to get points against. But when it's not on, they'll go through a streak of losses, and it'll really test the mentality of a group. It'll test the mentality of a fan base. It's all in. It is all in, and you've got to be all in with it. He's a manager. I've seen a lot of people say, like, "Oh, bring Bielsa for the U.S. or bring Bielsa, to MLS." I don't know if this country could handle Marcelo Bielsa, and I don't know if he would want to deal with it. To be honest, he doesn't put up with nonsense, and Leeds was a great club for him because, is he the biggest manager they've had in a long time? Yeah. Very different than what they've had, but the fan base, which, has been through a lot, completely bought in. They love the guy. And they loved him from day one, and they stuck with him. And that's what's been big. I think that's one reason why he came back and wanted to get them into the Premier League, and it's why you saw emotion out of him after they won the league, and just emotion all season. There was a clip, one of the players, I think it was Bamford, who hit a volley in training. Just a beautiful volley, and Bielsa came running from midfield to give him a hug, and Bamford's like, this isn't what he does. Like, he usually doesn't say much of anything in training, and he's running over to give me a hug. This is weird. Like, I think he's really kind of fallen in love with the whole thing at Leeds because of the treatment that he's gotten. And that's really important, too. You've got to give managers of this level some time. You've got to give them some time to do it because you're bringing them in because you trust them. So you've got to trust them to get the job done. And, yeah, you're going to have these blips. You're going to have the game against Derby County where they got knocked out. Started well, and then it just fell apart. You're going to have those moments, but the highs are worth it. And that's the trade-off. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. I've never followed Leeds to a super close degree. I've paid a lot more attention to him when Bielsa went there, and I'm excited to see. Like, they'll be the team that I'll probably watch the most in the Premier League next year because of that.
You mentioned the guys that you want. You're going to put them out there. 12 players for Bielsa in the season past had more than 36 appearances. 5 of his players played in 43 matches or more. And one guy had a start in all 46 matches. 3 had starts in 45, and Bamford started in 43. So it is, you got your guys, you're going to run with them, and you're going to run them as hard as you can. That's just how it is.
It's picking your spots. We talked about it with LAFC. It's picking your spots where you can manage minutes. And you can start guys 45 times if you're able to pull them at 45 or at 60 minutes, multiple times in a season. You can find ways to manage the minutes. And Bielsa's done a better job of that. So we'll see. It's going to be fun to watch, though. Chris Ashley's calling you out.
Okay.
You said there's nothing else on Twitter. And this happens. There's stuff on Twitter.
Oh, yes. His his comment down the line, where we were talking about Eric FC and how you could have a bunch of different guys named Eric with different spellings?
Yes.
Chris Ashley has tracked down Ross County, and apparently now Ross County boss Stuart Kettlewell last night welcomed Celtic keeper Ross Doohan and warned he faces a fight for the gloves. This is from Alistair Fraser. Doohan yesterday sealed a 1-year loan move to the Staggies, where he will compete with Ross Laidlaw and youngster Ross Munro for the number 1 spot. So all 3 keepers currently for Ross County are Ross.
That's a lot of Rosses.
Yes. So, there's a bunch of Rosses that are playing at Ross County, or at least want to be the starting keeper for Ross County between the sticks. So that was what Chris Ashley was referring to. Yes, exactly.
No, you kind of no-sold Chris Ashley. He's going to come after you now. He should.
Hey, he's a great contributor for Greenville Triumph Weekly, and we'll catch up with Chris later on this week, and he'll give us the 411 of what happened this past weekend.
I did not know that Calvin Phillips was called the Yorkshire Pirlo. That's awesome.
The Yorkshire Pirlo?
Yes, because he's from Yorkshire, and he plays holding midfield.
Okay. The Yorkshire
He doesn't play like Pirlo. not really. He actually runs. He's mobile.
He's not a traffic cone?
No, he's not a traffic cone, your favorite one. Pirlo fans should kick you on a repeated basis. He just didn't have any legs to play, and it was something that I felt like when he was signed, I said it over and over again, like, you've got to pair him up with somebody who can run for him. And I think they paired him up with Frank Lampard, and neither one of them could run at that point, and it just didn't go very well. So Calvin Phillips is that player. He plays it in a much different way, which is why it's funny he's called the Yorkshire Pirlo. He is a local guy, which is awesome. I've really liked his play too, and I saw that his father is Jamaican, so he could play for Jamaica or he could play for England. He's never been part of England youth national teams, but now it sounds like Gareth Southgate is talking about bringing him in, wanting to get him to declare for England. Be very curious to see how that goes, but he's a player who he was one that Bielsa, when the job opportunity came up, he was a player that Bielsa identified quickly and said, no, he's staying and he's going to be important here, and he's turned into, if not their most important player, one of their most. And maybe that's another thing that I haven't mentioned about the Bielsa style is that player, that number 6, that holding midfielder, is vital. Especially when you're doing what Bielsa's doing now with a line of 4 that turns into a line of 3 in possession, because Phillips is the one who allows you to do that. So he's a critical player, and he was a player that not many people really thought a ton of until Bielsa got there, and he's taken him to the point that now England's wanting to give him a call-up.
You wanted to yell at me about...
what am I yelling about you now? I've already yelled at you enough today. I'm trying not to be a bully, John.
No. You yelled at me about my Zlatan search. That was the other thing.
Oh, yeah. Like, you're trying to discredit Zlatan through research now. Why are you attacking Zlatan again? What did he do to you this time?
Well, it was. I'm trying to find the full screen graphic that his club put out about the oldest player ever to score 10 goals in a Serie A season, 38 and 302.
That's a fact.
Trying to look at what were the numbers that they came up with. Before Zlatan joined and after Zlatan joined and all this kind of stuff. And Zlatan says, I could play till I'm 50. And
well, that's Zlatan being Zlatan. That's not the issue.
No.
You're arguing facts.
Yeah.
Why are you arguing facts? He is the oldest. It was an oldest player to score more than 10.
Birth certificate.
No, you're trying to discredit the fact. He's the oldest player to score 10 or more goals in Serie A, right? Is that the fact?
38 and 302.
He was critical to Milan. He's critical to Pioli keeping his job. He's critical to Milan's success since joining the team. He's been very, very important. And now you want to throw shade at Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Why?
Because, let's see, 8 of the 21 matches that were played were against teams that were 13th or lower in the Serie A pyramid. So you better be having those kinds of results if you expect to be. If you're AC Milan and you want to be toward the top of the table, you better get those kinds of results. I don't care who you are.
So now you're not just throwing shade at Zlatan, you're throwing shade at Pioli, you're throwing shade at Milan as an organization.
Hey, you better get this stuff done. That's all I'm saying.
So now you're saying that they should go get Ralph Rangnick and Pioli played bad teams, so that's why they've done well, and it's all a facade.
You're doing your job. Why should I sit here and toot your horn because you did your job?
So it's easy to score goals in Serie A, right?
Against lesser competition, I would hope so.
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. Okay. It's a little harsh, man. A little harsh. And I'm not a Zlatan fan by any stretch.
I'm not either.
Well, obviously you're not. You're
X number of points that we had before he got here and then X number of points after he got here. Yeah, when you play 13 or lower, you better come up with 24 points or as close as you can with that.
Okay.
And fine. And Nick can come after me all he wants on tonight's show. That's fine. But I just looked at this and I'm like, look, do your job. Don't sit here and toot your horn because you did your job, you know? But Zlatan likes to toot his horn about playing till he's 50 and toot his own horn about all the other things anyway. So that was...
Well, no. Let's be real. Nick is about to explode. Let's be real here. Zlatan is a jerk. There's just no way around it, okay? The things he said about MLS, the things he says about everywhere he's been, the things he said about Pep Guardiola. I mean, pick your person that he's talked trash about. He's a jerk. He's been a jerk. He's got an unbelievable ego.
And he's better at 39 than he was at 38 in MLS. I saw that narrative, too.
What is that supposed to mean?
That's what I was getting at.
No, what are you saying it means is what I'm asking you, because you brought it up.
Everybody said, oh, he's better at 39 in Serie A than he was at 38 in MLS.
What?
Yeah.
No, I don't even know what you're trying to say.
It's like, oh, he's better as he gets older in a different league. That's all that was being. That's all that was being
intimated. That's not a crack on MLS. If anything, his success in Serie A is a good thing for MLS because people tried to say that he did well in MLS because MLS is garbage. Well, obviously not, because he's went over to Serie A and he's done pretty well for himself. So no, I'm gonna take that one away. Michael Ruiz is coming at you as well. You're just firing up everybody against Inter, that team that finished second, right? Remember them?
Yeah.
Oh, now you're gonna get mad because you said they played a bunch of bums.
I said 8 of their 21 they took care of business. That's what they should have done.
Well, that's not even half. You're coming after Zlatan. It's not even fair. 8 of 21 games were against bad teams. Okay, then that means 13 were not. And as Michael Ruiz points out, he had a goal and an assist and was the best player on the pitch against Inter. He was second in Serie A. What does that mean?
You finished 6th.
Yeah, and they would have been worse if he hadn't showed up.
Yeah.
I can't believe you are getting me to defend Zlatan Ibrahimovic. This is painful to me. But it's true because you're being unfair.
So I'm being a bully now.
No, everybody's being a bully to you because you're being a bully to Zlatan. You have made everybody defend Zlatan. Do you understand how crazy that is?
Yeah. I do. Congratulations, everybody. You're defending Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Zlatan is not gamey. Zlatan is not like your blueberry muffins that get stale. He is still doing the job. I mean, to go to Serie A and score 10 goals in 1,300 minutes, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, what he did with the Galaxy was good. He scored... What, dude?
Oh, but now that he's conquered MLS, he's going back to Serie A. I've conquered MLS. Yeah, you got all those titles.
No, that's different. No, he didn't conquer MLS. He scored a bunch of goals in MLS.
That's what he said.
He says a lot of stuff. He said Pep Guardiola's not a good manager, too, and we know that's bunk. He says a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean that he stinks. You have to separate them. He says things that are ridiculously wrong, but he scored 10 goals in 16 starts in Serie A and made Milan better. That is ridiculously correct.
All right, so now I'm going to have to go down the game by game with Zlatan and sit here and see which matches he scored in.
Are we seriously going to do this? Okay, fine. Here we go. I already got it. So,
Okay.
Cagliari. He scored against Cagliari in the last match. Where are they in the table? You got to have the table up if you're going to trash this.
14th.
Okay, so that goal doesn't count. It's no good. He scored 2 goals against Sampdoria.
15th.
No, those don't count either, so throw those away. They drew with Atalanta. He scored 2 goals against Sassuolo.
Sassuolo is 8th.
So those count. He scored a goal against Juve. That counts.
Sure.
He scored a goal against Lazio. That counts, right?
Yep.
Scored a goal against Genoa. That's not good, right?
17th.
Scored a goal against Inter. That's pretty good.
Yep.
Scored a goal against Torino.
16th.
And scored another goal against Cagliari. I think that was his first appearance.
14th.
So only half of his goals count.
14, 15, 16, 17.
Okay. So next time we have a Golden Boot winner, you need to do the John Nelson trick on this then. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to go and take away the goals against bad
lesser
teams. Competition.
If you're putting up these big numbers up against teams that are substandard and probably going to be relegated, I'll separate it into 2 columns.
Okay. Yeah, you might.
The do your job column and the do your job column.
You might want to wait on that. You might want to go and do some math on, Joseph Martinez. You might want to do some math on, your Swansea players you like. You might want to do some math on some other guys because you score more goals against bad teams. It happens. You still got to score.
Yeah.
It still counts. Why are you trying to take this? Other than Zlatan has been a jerk multiple times in his career, why are you trying to make this argument here when it holds up for any player? You're going to score more against bad teams. That's just a fact. He scored against the top team. He scored against the number 2 team. So it's not like he only scored against bad teams. It's about half and half, which is probably what it should be. That's about right. So, I mean, he is 38. He shouldn't be scoring like a 28-year-old. He's scoring a lot more than most 38-year-olds. He has done better at Milan than I thought he would by a long shot. And I'm always defending MLS. I didn't think he would have this success at Milan. I did not. So stop diminishing it.
How would you compare? How would you compare Serie A teams and MLS? How would you compare them as leagues?
Well, it's a different style. Like it's a whole different mentality. Juve is better than anybody. Inter, Atalanta, better than anybody. I mean, it's not even close. Beyond that, no, it's not as huge of a jump. I think the bottom half is not like shocking compared to top MLS teams. But this shows you where are you going with it? Are you trying to say that MLS is garbage now?
No, I was not.
Because this shows you that it's not. He did really well with the LA Galaxy, and he might have scored a lot of goals against bad teams. I don't know. I'm not going to go back and do the math because it doesn't matter. And he went to Milan and is scoring at close to the same rate. So it's a credit to him, which you have to give him that credit.
He's a freak. He's an absolute freak. I give him
that. Yeah, it's a credit to him. It's a credit to Milan to get the best out of him. And, I mean, it's a credit to MLS because it's not like he dominated here and then went over there and stunk.
But he dominated here. Just ask him.
He did. John, he scored 31 goals, man. I mean, come on. I don't like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but yes, he dominated here. His team was garbage.
Yes.
His team couldn't defend anything.
But he conquered MLS. Just ask him.
John, people say stupid things all the time. It doesn't mean that he's a bad player. Yes, he did not conquer MLS. Of course he's going to say he did. As an individual, he did. He scored a ton of goals. That's not how you conquer a league. You conquer a league by winning titles. His team was garbage. It didn't matter how many goals he scored. They were going to give up 2 more.
Yep.
So, that's reality. Did he do his job? Did he hold up his end of the bargain for the LA Galaxy? Yes, he did. He 100% did. Was he a bad teammate? Yeah, according to pretty much most of the players who played with him.
Yeah.
But did he score goals? Is that what he was brought in to do? Yes, he did. That's a fact.
Got zero support.
He got support in the offense. They just had no defense. And it was never going to work that way. So he's done the job at Milan that he was brought in to do. And they're going to sign him. Now, is he going to be able to keep doing the job? And I feel like we have this conversation about every player once they get past 35.
Yep.
You know, you're going to sign him for another year or two or a year with an option. Is he going to do what he did this year next year? We don't know that. This kind of season with this short of a time frame to get ready for the next season, I do worry about his body at some point breaking down. He's a freak physically, and it hasn't yet outside of that knee injury. Maybe that, you know, honestly buys him a little bit of time because he missed so much time there. Maybe it gives him another year or two. But at some point, Father Time's going to catch up to him. Playing in Milan at that level, it's going to catch up. And it's going to catch up fast. When is that going to be? I don't know how long I would want. I wouldn't go more than a year in a guaranteed deal. And if you can get him for a year, cool. Get him with a year with an option in case it continues to go well, that's fine. Beyond that, I wouldn't do it. He's a freak. He drives me crazy. I didn't like the way he treated MLS during his time here. I didn't like the things that I heard that he did to his teammates. I didn't like the things he said about the league. But him going to Italy and doing well is a credit to MLS. It's a good thing. And I'm not going to try to diminish it by saying he scored against bad teams, because he scored against good teams too.
I look at the layoff that he got and the X number of months, then I think that you could come in a whole lot fresher and a lot healthier for this sprint that we had to end the Serie A season. I want to see how his body responds in the first 2 months, say, of the upcoming season because of the short turnaround, not having the standard amount of time that you would have to recover and rest and get back into a training camp and a regular regimen. So I just want to see how that body responds coming out of the blocks for this upcoming season after having just ended the one that we just had.
I mean, the thing is, though, his last 4 games of the season, he scored 5 goals. So that's pretty ridiculous. And Ricky Ricardo, no, I don't think he would have gotten the Milan move if he hadn't done well here. Yeah. If he hadn't done well in MLS, I think it would have been, if he wanted to keep playing, he would have went back to Sweden, or he would have went to China or the Middle East. He would have went for a fat contract somewhere. His performance here got him to Milan, and he's delivered. He's 100% delivered. Chris Ashley nails it, and this is completely accurate. He is the Ric Flair of soccer. He is a self-promoting heel who completely and frustratingly lives up to his own hype.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah, that's true. You're right on, Chris. You got it. Yeah, I mean, that's just as frustrating an individual as he is to his teammates and to a team structure. He is an insanely talented individual and continues to be so.
So stop trying to diminish it, because one, it's good for MLS. I will take it. Bernd Dursberger with a good point, and we'll get into this tonight on Soccer Over There, because this will be a little bit deeper for Nick Alifi. Is it fair to say that Serie A is less athletic than MLS? And that's one reason why he went there. I mean, he'd been there before, so I think that factored in too. But, you know, was it a better fit for him because it was less athletic? My gut feeling is yes, but I don't watch Serie A enough to feel 100% comfortable saying that. I think it is. Yeah. We'll get Nick on that tonight. We'll talk about it maybe to kick off Soccer Over There tonight. At least get Nick's input if he can't join us tonight.
Yeah. El Mataflo back in this morning. He says, fun side story about shambolic management, since managers are a hot topic. Ecuador hired Jordi Cruyff, son of Johan, then let him go before he was ever able to manage a game. Looking at some crazy circumstances here, it came down to the pandemic and Cruyff wanting to spend more time in Spain than in Ecuador. All things considered, at least Atlanta United isn't the Ecuadorian Footballing Federation.
Yeah, if you didn't have the pandemic, maybe that doesn't happen. It's a mess. And it changes everything. I mean, you know, maybe he wouldn't have wanted to spend as much time in Spain if you weren't dealing with a pandemic. It's crazy. I mean, you're going to have more stuff like this. People are going to be maybe less reluctant to move further away from home or family because of this. Because, until we get it all under control, we don't know what it's going to look like with being able to travel freely. So it's weird. I had a question about Gustavo Alfaro from, I believe it was Shiva in the Twitch chat. Alfaro is another manager who's on the list. Was last at Boca Juniors. He's bounced around a lot. Now, Boca was the biggest club he was at. Before Boca, he had been at Huracan, he had been at Gimnasia, he had been at Tigre, Arsenal de Sarandi, Rosario Central, always like the teams just below. Boca was the biggest job he had. I thought in the games against River that I watched with Boca, he was very conservative, too conservative, probably because he came from smaller teams, and those were the biggest games he'd ever been in. I don't know if he's a good fit here because of that. He's got a ton of experience, but not having – he's a weird one because – he just got so conservative in those games. I would worry about him in a situation like this. Now, at Boca, 50 matches played, he won 27. That's pretty good. But he also had talent better than anybody. So, according to John's math, then we probably shouldn't credit all those wins because he played bad teams or he had more talent.
Point.
Yeah, you only get half a win. So, could he do a good job here? Probably, but those games against River, and I believe it was the Libertadores semifinals last time, I was surprised at how defensive and how conservative he got in those games, and that would worry me about coming to a job like this. Doesn't mean that he would do that here, but that's what sticks with me about him. And we'll see. Has he ever managed outside of Argentina? He has not, and that would be another thing. So, played at a smaller club in Argentina and has only managed in Argentina. So, it'd be a stretch. It'd be a big risk. Managing Boca helps you, but just getting conservative in those moments, I don't know if that's what you're looking for here. I don't know if he would go over as well. But he had success at Boca on his resume, and he had some other success too. But there's probably better options out there.
Aitor Karanka, I think, was taken off the list. He's at Birmingham City now.
Yeah, Ricky asked about who's off the list. Aitor Karanka is at Birmingham City. Dome Tarrant is at Flamengo. Those are done deals, so those guys are off the list. Unai Emery's off the list. He is at Villarreal. So there's still plenty of names out there, and there's plenty of names out there of people who are not in jobs currently, and there's people who are in jobs that are going to be considered. And by the time you make a hire, that could change. There could be some people who become available. Eddie Howe's one who you didn't think he'd be available. He's available now. You can have a conversation. So we will see. I've seen a lot more reporting about Pochettino being on the list for Barcelona, and that I guess he said something about how he had originally said he'd never do anything with Barcelona because of his time at Espanyol. They're bitter rivals across town. And I guess somewhere, and I have not seen it, that he said that wasn't an issue anymore. I'm not buying it. I don't know. I'm not buying it until I'll pull a John. I'm not buying it until he is actually hired at Barcelona.
Until it happens, it ain't happening.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of rumors that it's going to happen, and I'm not saying that about somebody who's actually playing games in the league and you saying that they don't exist. I'm talking about a guy who has said he's not going to work with this team, and now somebody's saying that he is. Until he says it, I'm not buying it. So I don't think that one's going to happen.
Forbes this past weekend, getting through. It's the Sanderson article from Forbes, quoting from the article itself. Due to his lack of enthusiasm, fourth choice Kike Setien was swiftly hired, but in fresh comments made to El País, Pochettino has backtracked and made himself a candidate to succeed the current under-fire tactician. Quote, I was in Barcelona that year, and I met with Bartomeu in a bar, he explained in an interview this weekend.
That was a while ago. Yeah.
We greeted each other because we were taking the children to the same school and we were talking for 5 minutes. That generated a rumor that set off alarms because there were more teams that wanted us. And when they asked me, parenthesis, about becoming Barca boss, I wanted to settle it drastically. I did not want to disrespect Barcelona. I could have said things differently. Espanyol has made a name for me, but I'm not arrogant, and I didn't like making a statement like that. Maybe now I wouldn't, because in life you never know what will happen, end quote.
That's not much of an endorsement that he would go to Barca. The story about meeting with Barca's president happened a while ago. I feel like maybe that's trying to make more out of it. I'm still not necessarily buying it.
So there's your Bartomeu back to Setien once again in his own sit-down chat with Sport. News will still be music to the ears who would enjoy a world-class shot caller of Pochettino's caliber in the dugout. So that's this Tom Sanderson article in Forbes that came out this morning.
Ricky Ricardo is excited about the new Manchester City kit, and I have not seen it yet. If you're excited about it, I'm going to have to find this.
Yeah. Is it another one of those like forward medicine drip kit kind of deals? Or is it sublimated or anything like that? Any fancy graphics or any pictures you have to look for? Like a Where's Waldo kit kind of thing where you're looking for designs and there's hidden Manchester City crests in there or something?
No, it's just it's a good kit. It is, I'm assuming, it's their away, their second kit. It looks good. There's designs on it. Yes, I don't think there's a Where's Waldo game in it. No.
Okay, just thought I would ask. You're sitting there and you're looking for a kit. I didn't know if there was something special like I said, like that forward medicine drip kit that is entirely too expensive for me.
Chris Ashley says that drip kit on the ridiculous field in Wauwatosa was horrendous.
Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, with all of the lines for every sport short of Quidditch.
Badgermon's coming after Chris Ashley. It's going to be a fight in the Twitch room. I can already see it. The white numbers on the kit were bad. That was bad. That's the problem with a kit like that is it's almost impossible unless you like create a box or circle or something on the back to put the numbers in. It's almost impossible to read them.
Yeah, I was going to say, where do you put something like that? That's like looking at a Salvador Dali painting and trying to put numbers on it.
Well, you put the numbers where the numbers go, but you create a way to actually see the numbers.
Yeah. As long as they're not drip numbers in a different color scheme. That'd be kind of weird.
You can't put drip numbers on a drip kit because then you can't see anything.
Well, no, but I mean, like if you went against what is it, like a pink and blue and a darker blue and a black? Is that's the drip kit numbers? The drip kit colors. So if you had to come up with something that was a whole lot lighter to counteract it.
No, the whole point is that it's a drip kit. It's like multicolored, so you can't just slap a number on it and see it. It's impossible because you can't see it within all the different colors. You have to create a box or a one color section where you can put the number in it so you can actually see the thing on the back. That's the only way to do it.
If you do like a box and then white numbers, it might actually do something.
If you do a black box with white numbers, it's like a black kit with white numbers. You can actually read it. That's the whole point. That's the only way it works. A lot of people are shouting out, and it is a really good look. Forward Madison, is it a training kit? The Black Lives Matter, training top.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good look. I really dig that. That is available for sale.
Yes.
All the proceeds go to the YWCA in Madison for that. The shirt that Warren Creval designed for MLS, that is available for sale as well. I think it's on Warren's site, and I do not remember where the funds are going for that one. I know it's a fundraiser.
It's a fundraiser, and it does click through to Warren's site, but it's good stuff. And I was waiting for that to actually happen, because knowing how prominent they were and what it represents for Major League Soccer, I was waiting for this to happen, and it happened over the weekend, of course. And so, of course, I was one of the first ones in line. At least I thought I was. I was order number 121 to pick up one of those.
You're not as quick as you think you are.
No, I'm not.
You were sitting on the floor, so you weren't ready for it.
True. I'll grant you that.
Ricky says, what's the easiest kit of ours to read? Trying to think in general. The first Stripes kit wasn't the easiest, but it was okay. Like dark gold numbers on red. It wasn't bad. Maybe the easiest was the first secondary kit, the gray with the kind of lighter red numbers.
The concrete and cherry pie kit?
Yeah, that's what you called it, yes. I think they called it something else officially. That some other people stuck with that too. I think I heard granite and strawberry as well. So anyway, red on gray was pretty good. Peach was tough. I got okay at it, but it was tough. It's better than the gold on white. The gold on white's really hard to read, especially with some lighting where it starts just kind of blinding everything. The current striped kit is easier to read than the first one, I think. Now I need to go and do a comparison. But I think the easiest ones were those gray with the red numbers. I think those were the easiest to read.
What about the gold lettering and numbers on the back of the black on the stripe kit? Was that difficult?
That's what I said, the first one, right?
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, that's what I said. It was, okay, but it wasn't perfect. The red was easier to read on the gray.
Okay.
I got to compare the two stripe kits to see which one is better. Okay. The parlay ones were easy, yeah. At least one of them was. The kind of grayish one with white was maybe the easiest of any of them. The Warren Creval's already sold out, so sorry. I apologize for even bringing that up. In terms of going to buy one, it's gone.
Wow. Good for them. That's tremendous. And I imagine that when they figure out how they can do another reorder and a reissue, just kind of keep an eye on that one. But as popular as that was, they'll figure out a second run, trust me.
Yeah, I'm with Abby on the gold and white. They should have a black outline of the gold. That would help it be easier to read. It's not as bad as the worst kits I've ever seen with numbers were San Antonio in the NASL, not San Antonio FC and USL, the
Scorpions?
NASL version, the Scorpions, who came into Silverbacks Park and had white kits with white numbers with a very thin outline on the back. Some of this is down to the lighting at Silverbacks Park, but it was impossible. It was just a joke of trying to read those things.
Especially down at the far end, when they're down at the other end away from where the press area was at Silverbacks Park. That's rough. That's rough when they're on your side of the pitch, but when they're down there on the other side on the south end, that's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. You learn to identify guys not by number.
Uh-huh. But I had a question for Nick in our Serie A discussion for the morning.
Okay.
And so I said that my larger question is, how would you compare lower table Serie A sides against MLS teams across the board? And so Nick says, Atlanta 2018, LAFC, Toronto 2017 could avoid relegation or mid-table or be mid-table in Serie A.
I'd put more mid-table, and again, Nick follows Serie A closer than me, but yeah, I think your top teams, and you can take your top teams each year. I think are mid-table, and we know how. And this is also, you have to remember too, MLS teams have restrictions that Serie A teams don't. Yeah. It's not a like-for-like comparison. But if you take Atlanta United, if you take LAFC, if you take Toronto at their best, I even think if you take New York City with their talent, if you take the most talented teams and you put them into Serie A, I don't think they're going to be just struggling to survive. I think you're talking mid-table. Your top teams in Serie A, your top half of the table is going to be beyond that. Because the level of spending, it's too much. Could MLS teams get there? Yeah, if they could spend more. And that's a different conversation, but they can't. So you're dropping them into a league where, I think where people hear something like that, which is unfair, they say, oh, MLS isn't as good as Serie A. Well, no, Serie A has a few more years on it. And they have no salary cap. So the top teams in Serie A, yes, they are better than MLS because they can spend whatever they want. That's true. But the top MLS teams can be mid-table teams in Serie A as they're currently constructed. You give them the ability to go spend more, it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So it's not a like-for-like comparison. And it's impossible to predict because you're talking very different styles. You're talking differences in the types of players that are involved. I mean, if you go and sign players that a Sassuolo is going to go sign in the upcoming window and you bring them to MLS, they might not be successful worth anything here. You take players that come in here that are going to be successful straight away, they might not be successful in Serie A. Styles do affect it. That's the differences between leagues around the world. So you're also saying that the talent that suits your league isn't good enough for this league, but the talent that suits that league might not be good enough for this league. So it's none of it's a like-for-like comparison. You see this all the time with players who move from different leagues, even the top leagues in Europe. Some players move to the Premiership. It does not work. It doesn't fit for them. Some players move to La Liga. It doesn't work for them. They're not successful there. And sometimes it's down to the team. Sometimes it's the style of play in the league. You have differences, and that's okay. It's not the NBA versus other basketball leagues.
Euro League or something like that.
Basketball is basketball. Like, it's not quite the same thing. With soccer, each league has its own personality. And that's going to suit some players, and that's not going to suit some players. But you also have MLS with a cap, other leagues out without that. It's just a whole different world. But I think MLS, and I think it was Michael Ruiz said that, Atlanta United could play with Fiorentina from what he saw of Fiorentina this year. And yeah, I don't think that's crazy to say. I think your top teams in MLS would be competitive. Would some of them have a bad year and get relegated? Yep. Would some of them sneak up and get into a challenge for a European spot? Yep. Those things are possible. That's just where it's at. MLS has come a long way. To be in that conversation, it's come a long way. Serie A's also stepped back a little bit, too, from where they used to be. That's all right. That's where you're comparing apples to, apricots and trying to compare the taste. It's not quite the same.
No. News from Stephen Goff in the last half hour. He says Rose Lavelle is apparently in a walking boot for a persistent ankle injury, so it's NWSL news. Seems eager to sign with Manchester City, but the English club is concerned about the injury. WSL starts September 5th with the Champions League in November. NWSL teams are scheduled to resume workouts August 17th in home markets in anticipation of possible friendlies and 4-team tournaments and other matches.
Yeah, we talked about that. That continues with August 17th with NWSL. Don't know what it looks like with what games look like for them. I don't think Manchester City is going to bring Lavelle in if she's having ankle injuries. And she was dealing with it at the NWSL tournament. That helps make that a little easier to deal with because I did not like the way that minutes were being managed. But if she's dealing with injuries, it would have been nice to know that. Yeah. I understand it. You're in a competition. You don't want to say it. It just never got reported. So it didn't really make a whole lot of sense why you were leaving her out so often and only playing her certain minutes. And if it was just down to the national team saying we're not going to play her as much, then it diminishes the NWSL tournament. Now we know there's a little bit more to it. We'll have to see if she ends up going. Doesn't sound good if she's in a walking boot for a persistent ankle injury. Like, what's the problem? Yeah. That needs to get sorted out. It needs to get sorted out now. So if that means she doesn't go to Man City right now, then get the ankle resolved. It doesn't need to be something that lingers.
And I think there was also news involving Rachel Daly that I'm looking up real quick.
She might go on loan to a WSL team. She said she'd be interested in it.
Yeah, so that was the Rachel Daly stuff, and my fat fingers were slower than your scanning skill. So there you go.
No, I already read it.
Oh.
I already knew that. It's not scanning. I already knew that one. I keep up with stuff. I try to take some notes. I try to pay attention. Final call for questions as we wrap up. Burned with one on Twitch. Do you know the average kilometers run in MLS per game? Can find the ones for the Bundesliga. Maybe Nick knows for Serie A. Doesn't mean quality, but it reflects the athleticism. I don't know that. I'll have to do some digging. I know it's come up. I know it's something that's been reported on occasionally. I would assume, and this is just from the eyeball test, that it is maybe not substantially higher in MLS, but yeah, I think there's more, which is a little surprising because when MLS first launched, a lot of people saw it as a slower league because of the heat. Like you had to play a little bit slower. But now it's not really that way across the board. You have teams that push the envelope and do that. And yes, Jason Hicks says we are legally required to report this in miles per hour, not kilometers per hour. Good times.
88 is 55.
Yeah, something like that. So we'll do some digging, see what we can find out about it. But yeah, I think MLS is a more athletic league. I think it is definitely a league with more transition. And I mean, if you compare Italy to Germany, Germany is all about the transition and maybe the most kilometers or miles run. And Serie A might be maybe with France. I don't know. I wonder which one has the least between France, Italy, and Spain. I'd lean to Italy being the lowest, but the French league can be a little slow-paced at times too. So England is probably pretty quick, probably a good bit run because it's something that's valued in the English game. I mean, it's the thing about the soccer conversation here that's so interesting is what is valued and what isn't. And you compare it country by country. You know, like work rate is a huge thing in England. And in Italy, not so much. In Spain, they could care less. Yeah. In Brazil, forget it. You talk about work rate, somebody's going to kick you in the face. You compare, skill and technique on the ball. England, that's not as big of a deal. In Spain and Argentina and Italy, it's a big deal. Ability to defend. Defensive skill. Italy, it's valued maybe more than anywhere else. Other countries, they don't really care. Every country kind of has its own personality. Here we have a whole bunch of personalities, and that's why it's kind of hard to identify what the American soccer DNA is. Because you have an English influence, you have a German influence, you have a Latin influence, and the Latin influence isn't consistent. Because Mexico looks at the game differently than Colombia, differently than Argentina, differently than Brazil, differently than Uruguay. I mean, it's all different. So you have a lot of different things, and you have just an American influence of people who've grown up on other sports, and they bring things that they value into it. So it's intriguing, and it's evolving, which is good. I don't know if we'll ever have one thing that we value about the game or look for in the game or look for our national team to play like or look for MLS to be like. I think it's always going to be a little different in the world or different compared to the rest of the world because, their leagues, their national teams, they've kind of had these DNA characteristics for a long time. So one question about the whole mileage or kilometers run thing. That's why they have the vests underneath jerseys. That's one of the things you're tracking. You're tracking, how far you run in a game, how many sprints you have in a game. You're managing heart rate, or you're checking heart rate with that too. All kinds of different elements. It just gives you more data to work with, and the more data you have, the more you know. Bundesliga says you can look up, or Byrne says for the Bundesliga, you can look up kilometers run for each player, each game on the league website. Shows you what they value. Absolutely. If that was in Italy, people would go nuts if you tried to put that on there. People would go insane. Argentina, they might value it. England, they would value it. Mexico, they'd kick you in the face. It's all about what you value. It's very interesting.
Michael Head says, just more running means, quote, more athletic, end quote, with a question mark. Isn't that a broad statement, and is that really true?
Well, it depends on what you mean. I took people saying MLS was a more athletic league to say that, yes, more running's part of it. More sprinting would be another part of it, and that's another bit of data that I don't know if we have. More transition moments, I think, leads you to more athletic. I don't think necessarily more attack-minded leads you to athletic. Some people might. I don't necessarily go down that way. It's more about how far, how fast, and how many times like you're sprinting in those transition moments. I think that does make for a more athletic league.
Because I mean, I would sit there and you're mentioning just because.
Let me rephrase. A more athletic style of play would be a better way to put it, because you have players in Italy that are athletic players and could run very far and could sprint all the times you need and could play in transition teams, but don't, because the style of play is different.
Right.
If the league standard is higher in terms of amount of or distance covered, sprinting, how many sprints, the league has a more athletic profile than another league.
Yeah. So that's. I was trying to gauge the notion of if just because you sprint more, does that mean you're more athletic, or does that mean that style of play, and does that turn into anything, or is that just energy that's exerted that doesn't have an end result?
No, energy that's exerted doesn't have an end result. I mean, you can't tell that from just somebody sprinting. Like you're not just sprinting to sprint. I mean, players don't just run fast to run fast. Like
right.
Nobody does that unless you're being chased. So, like, you're doing it for a reason. The end result might not be a goal, but it might be to speed the game up. It might be to put a team under pressure. It's a lot of different things. You don't have players just running around for no reason. Like in the Bundesliga, a player doesn't cover a ton of ground just because they want to. Like there's a point to it.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. In Italy, they don't do that as much because there's a point to it. The way the team is structured, you're not asking them to do that. It's different. It's different in what's valued. It's all different. So we'll see. We'll get into that a little bit more tonight if we can find some data on it. We'll get Nick Alifi's input. Hopefully he can join us. Jarrett_Smith might be joining us as well. We'll see who else we can round up for soccer over there. That will be at 7 o'clock on the app, on the website, and on twitch.tv/soccerdown here. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Thanks, everybody, for kicking it with us this morning and all the different comments, all the different questions. We'll be back later with more. Not really a whole lot going on today until we get to that point. It's a weird day. Like, after the MLS tournament got to the semifinals, I'm like, man, need more games to talk about. We don't have the playoff until tomorrow with Fulham, so we'll get into that maybe a little bit tonight. We'll talk about Champions League tonight as well, with those games kicking off. Europa League as well. Those games getting started this week. So we got a lot to talk about, but it's kind of a slow day. Get to catch our breath a little bit and not just run for no reason.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the Willian situation. There are rumors going on about that right now. And Dwayne Johnson's apparently now a part owner in the XFL.
Yes, and just had a question from Fourcard Ahmed, and no, we did not get into it, and it didn't come up. If it did, I missed it. I did not see it. About the whole podcast, Atlanta United, Barstool thing from the weekend. I didn't see it. If it came up, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it right now because Fourcard asked. It's really mutated into a whole lot of stuff since it was posted, which is not a surprise because anything associated with Barstool turns into that. I was surprised when it was posted. I expected the pushback that happened. Was all of it fair? No. There was a lot of unfair things said about it, but it also opens up a door that you don't necessarily want to open, and it did, and it was deleted for that reason because it didn't bring anything good to the table. It stinks that people have asked me about my feelings on it, and I had nothing to do with it. I don't control that. It has nothing to do with me, but people ask if I like Barstool because of it. I don't listen to their stuff. I have not heard of their soccer content creating the problems that others have, other elements of their network have, I guess is a good thing. It's tough, man. I didn't like seeing the reaction to it. I didn't like seeing the criticisms, but I understand the criticisms. I don't associate with Barstool. I don't listen to their stuff because of a lot of the criticisms. So, that's just my personality on it. I don't really enjoy what they do in terms of their style. I especially don't like that what's happening now. And this is, I guess, the biggest reason why I kind of flinched a little bit when I saw this coming was this is what they do really well. This is how they get so much attention. They do something and people question Barstool on it because they have a lot of things to question. And then they double down and say, well, you can't question us. It's not fair to question us. I don't have anything to do with it. It's the group over here with Barstool. It's not me. And it just becomes something completely different. And that's what I'm seeing this turn into. I mean, I'm seeing like so much back and forth about, well, you said this 10 years ago, or you did this, or you can't criticize us. And it's like, it's not even about the original topic. I was a little surprised that the podcast came out. I didn't listen to it, so I don't know what was said. I haven't seen anybody quote anything from it that was upsetting about it, so that's good at least. But it's created something that just didn't need to be created. So that would assume that's why it's been deleted, and that's where it is.
Yeah. For me, where Barstool's concerned, I don't listen to their content, and I did not listen to this particular show. I've never been a fan of their work. And that's just how I am where Barstool's concerned. They have their target demo. They lock themselves into that with their content. And I just have zero interest in listening to anything that's attached to Barstool and what they do on a daily basis.
I don't like what they try to make okay. And I don't like how they basically argue online with no integrity to create controversy with no value. There's just not much value coming outside of it's edgy. I'm sure they have some funny jokes from time to time. Good for them. Mm-hmm. But the whole personality of we're going to upset people because that's how we get clicks and that's how we get people interested in what we're doing, and now we're going to create a social media bit of drama about it. I don't have time for that nonsense. So, and I don't have time for some of the things that people high up in an organization have said and continue to say and know that they're getting the reactions that they want because they keep saying them. So It's not for me. And here we are. It's been deleted and it's not going to go away because nothing goes away. But now the conversation has twisted into things that have nothing to do with the original podcast to begin with, which is what Barstool usually does and what they usually want to do. So, this is what they do. They create drama and then they ride it out. Mm-hmm. That's how they feel like they get their attention that they want, and it's doesn't bring any value to me. So I don't deal with it. Nope. Anyway, so it wasn't ducking that at all. It didn't come up. People didn't ask us. I didn't have a problem talking about it. We have. If you have other questions about it, please shoot them to me online. We'll be back at 7 o'clock. We'll talk about it more then if you want to. It was an unneeded distraction from the weekend, I'll tell you that much. So that's where we're at. We'll be back with soccer over there tonight, 7 o'clock. Hope you all have a good rest of the day, and talk to y'all later today. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.